Hey guys, welcome back to Under the Influence. I'm your host, Riley Shoemaker, and we are here with Victoria Alario. She is a confidence coach, podcast host, and you just started your own label called Vixen the Label. But I want to talk first about your career in social media. On the show, we like to get to know influencers and how it is they got to where they are today. So you have 161K on Instagram. That's so many. But when did you get started and how did you get started?
Well, thank you so much. I'm actually really, really excited to be doing this. I feel like I've been in the social media world for a while, but as we were just talking about like the new world of podcast, this is like a new experience for me doing like guest podcasting. So I'm like nervous, excited, but yeah, so I actually started social media as a hobby in 2014 or 15 when I was in college. And
How old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
You look like you probably get this all the time. You look like you're like 18.
I do get this all the time.
It's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, I do get this all the time. So when I was like 20, I guess, 19, 20, whatever it was when I was in college, at the time, it was like just Ami Song and Ariel Charnas and Camilla. Like I was seeing these like amazing, beautiful women on Instagram and I'm like, oh, I could easily do that. So I'm shopping like Boohoo, Forever 21, like borrowing clothes from my friends. Half the time I was borrowing clothes and returning them because I was a college student who had like a work-study job. You're limited hours. You're not really allowed to make that much money. So I was just doing it for fun, taking pictures, literally anyone who would take my photos. And then I did work in the city in fashion PR. So I stayed doing this because it was actually pretty convenient for me working in fashion in a showroom. I was like borrowing like the samples out of our sample closet, taking pictures, or I would literally take the clothes off my coworkers' backs, take photos on lunch break, like do all that. And so I did that for years. By 2018 is when I started doing social media full time. Wow. So
when did you graduate college?
2016.
Okay.
So I was doing that for literally like 3 years just for fun, but I was like hustling. My mom and I were coming to the city on the weekends with my like pop-up tent, changing, and like half the time I was like naked in the tent and cops would be like, you can't have a tent open in a public park, like it's a hazard. And my mom's like, okay, well she needs to change. So like my mom's like the Regina George mom, she follows me around with like the camera and everything.
Like,
no, she literally is like, she was that for Halloween last year. She comes in with the camcorder and like an unbuttoned top and she's like doing this. I'm like, amazing. I can't.
Amazing.
Anyway, yeah, so we were taking all these photos and then it turned into, I was able to basically work full-time from social media since 2018. I had ended up quitting my job and I was 23. And then as time went on is when I started For the Girls. Again, another like thing that started as a hobby, but I knew I was going to make it happen. So I was hustling, working it full-time completely for free. And then now it is a job for me. And I would say that like my biggest blessing on social media in my career right now has honestly been TikTok, because I only started it this year, in January actually. That's at like 125,000, which I know is not the biggest, but my Instagram, I've had this Instagram forever and it's like it has not grown at the rapid rate that TikTok has.
Well, that's what makes TikTok so special is that you're able to have that growth in such a short period of time, whereas to get to 160K on Instagram, I mean, it takes a long time to build that type of following.
I would say that TikTok has like expanded everything. It expanded my, influencer marketing job because I do have a talent agent doing that. It expanded my audience, my reach on my podcast. Like being on TikTok this year really, I would say like grew everything for me. And so, now I am launching a brand. And so, it's like I do a lot of things. I do confidence coaching, as you mentioned. So it's been a long journey through social media.
You've worked through like so many phases of the influencer industry and economy. Like it's changed so much in the past 2 years, but like the amount it's changed in the past 7 years is insane. It looks completely different than it used to. 100%. And the perfect example of that is the fact that girls still do this, right? Like girls will still go to like Soho and take like their content batches of them changing and doing different looks. but it doesn't seem like you're doing that anymore. You've evolved.
Yeah.
And there's that opportunity to evolve on social media now, which is amazing. So you started your podcast for the girls. What is the premise of the podcast?
So for the girls, actually, originally I started it in maybe 2019. I think I was living in Tampa when I started it. So when I started with a friend as like an IGTV like show kind of.
That's
like,
what we started as.
Did you? Yeah. So that's what we were doing at first, and it was fun. But I'm like, the only people seeing this are my own Instagram followers, and I'm like, I want to do this bigger. Like, I just know I could put so much more into it because I'm a very hardworking person, but then there are also times where like social media makes things really easy for you, so you can get a little like lazy. So I'm doing that, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I could be doing something so much better. So then one day I just like snapped out of it and like overnight just like put the podcast together. So it started from there, but it really turned into being fully like helping women like level up. Well, it's called For the Girls. I tend to say women, but girls, women, all ages really. It's all about confidence, but in all different ways. So whether we're talking, work ethic and like business mindset, because I am an entrepreneur and I give a lot of like business, tips and guidance and things of that sort, or whether we're talking just dating and high standards, which I would say my dating and high standards like mindset is how I did grow on TikTok, because the videos that I was sharing for some people was considered like controversial in a sense.
Wait, why?
Because I just have like very high standards, and I am single, and I've learned so much in dating over the years that like
so you're 27 years old, like you have the right to like have opinions based on experiences,
right?
And people they might not agree, but your experience is your experience. Right?
Yeah. I just did I was talking to another girl that we're doing a podcast together, and she was the first person who really said to me like, how do you feel about like people who think that your dating advice or whatever is controversial? And I was like, is it? Like I didn't even think it was, but here I am now repeating what she said. But
I'm starting rumors over here.
Yeah, it's just like, but I think to some degree, like, it's true, because I think I'm giving basic generic advice, and then it's getting a million views on TikTok. So, and angry people in the comments, like, arguing with me. So
there's always going to be someone angry in the comments. So, like, that's not even like controversial to who. Right?
I know. That's what I think. So I would say that For the Girls is like a combination of all things, just like leveling up, whether it is personal or professional.
Amazing. You had a really interesting TikTok that I was watching earlier that was, you said it was about like paying on the first date.
This is why. This is the controversy.
But like, I was like, wait, I've never thought about this. So for people watching who haven't seen the TikTok, you say basically that if he's not paying for your date, he can't afford a wife. And, to have a wife and a life, it's expensive. And maybe people think that like you're insinuating that like he has to pay for his wife in life?
Yeah, no. It's first things first. One thing that I'm always like, I'm not afraid to say is like, this is how I was raised, by like a very traditional family where like, yes, a man takes care of his family. And I'm not afraid to say that. I know in general, we live in a very progressive world, and we all are progressive in our own ways, but in certain things, like, it's okay to really stick to your roots and like your ethics and your morals, and like that is just how I was always taken care of. And so one of my videos that went viral was telling my grandpa that like my date made me pay, it was a prank, but you should see the video. He's like,
I saw that.
Yeah. So like that's like a quick glimpse at like how serious they are about that. Like women don't pay for men, whatever. And so in that way, like, yeah, I'm still firm in those beliefs. And obviously if you don't agree with me, then to each their own.
Yeah.
But it's my TikTok, so I'm sharing my opinion, and my girls like it, my listeners like it.
Yeah.
So that specific saying of like, if he can't afford a dinner date, he can't afford a wife. Actually, I learned it from a love and manifestation coach who works with successful women and entrepreneurs. And I took a coaching course with her almost 2 years ago now, like a year and a half ago. And it basically just helps like successful women to understand where they come from in dating, because, as I'm sure you all know, like when women do become more successful, their options for a partner get smaller and smaller, right? Like because women aren't going to at least the ones I know, don't want to take care of a man. So they're like, okay, where's someone that I could either be equal with or is even more than me?
Right.
For the most part, with successful women, that's the mindset. And so she gives like these, this coaching to these women to really explain and understand where that, like, whether it's the ego or just like the morals, wherever it is, where it comes from. And so, I think about how many guys when I was younger, or, just things that I would see through other people, didn't really have that mindset of what I say on my TikTok is like the provider mindset,
Right.
Again, I was younger. I am 27 now, so I'm talking when I was, 22, 23. Like, it's not the same. So now what I've learned from her, she says, like, it's not a bad thing to say, like, having a wife, having kids, having a life, buying a house, it's a very expensive, it's not cheap. Like, it's obviously anyone in any regard can make it work. Obviously, like, no matter what your life looks like, people can make it work. But she's talking to, highly, successful women entrepreneurs, and she's saying, like, you are, whether it be entitled to your standards or whatever the case is, you are allowed to understand, like, no, I want a guy who can treat me and can take me out to dinner and can take care of me in that way, or whatever the case might be. Because if he can't even take you to dinner, you're going to have much bigger problems in the future.
Right.
So she says the whole, if he can't afford a date, he can't afford a wife. But also, if he can't plan a date, he can't plan a future either. So it kind of, it just goes from...
I love that line.
It just goes
it's
to
it's the bare minimum to plan a date, let alone... And I think that's like also goes back to the idea of like hookup culture, because I used to have this mindset that was like, who dates to marry? That's so dramatic. But then it's like, I mean, now I'm 26, so I definitely look at things differently, but I wish I had looked at it differently sooner, because, at the end of the day, it's like, if you're not dating to find someone to be with long term, then what the fuck are you doing?
Right. What are we doing? I know. And that's, listen, I lived in Miami. I told you this before. I had my fun.
Right.
Like, I definitely didn't care as much about like standards. It was like, I'm having fun. I'm not marrying any of these guys. I'm not dating any of these guys. So like, who cares? But then when it's all said and done and you actually take some time to reflect and you're like, okay, but bigger picture, what do I actually want? What are my actual like values and goals and morals, and what do I want in a man and in a partner? You're like, this whole hookup culture thing is actually not as empowering as I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's like we do like to say, like, we can do this, we can do whatever we want, and because we, again, like I said, like, we do live in a very progressive world where, yes, we should be able to say, if men can do it, women can do it too. But then when it comes down to hookup culture and sex, we're like, usually they're benefiting more than we are.
Right. It's like you end up getting taken advantage of either way.
Yeah, it's like, so actually, I'm going to retract from this world, and I'm going to just focus on leveling up not only my standards for a partner, but my standards for myself. Yeah, because I don't ask anything of anyone that I'm not capable of providing myself or giving myself. One of my favorite quotes that I've heard is like, as a single woman, or as a woman who's very self-aware and so on and so forth, men are not competing with other men for me. They're competing with me. They're competing with the way that I can take care of myself. I'm not looking for anyone to do anything for me that I can't deliver or I can't do myself. Yeah. So, I think a lot of girls have, or at least when I was younger, I could speak for myself, had that energy like that. I guess comes from when we talk about feminine energy, masculine energy, which I talk about on TikTok. It's like the wounded feminine energy, or like the toxic feminine energy, whatever the case is like we act like we're so helpless and hopeless, and like we need the guy to like,
come save us.
Come save us and the whole thing. And then it's like, that's not actually true. I actually can raise myself up, and all of that raises my own standards.
Yeah, I think you make such a good point too about like, when you raise your standards, raise your standards for yourself. Yeah. Like, if you have a habit that you wouldn't want in a partner, don't have that habit yourself, and break that habit for yourself as well. Yeah. So it's like, I think a lot of the time And I feel like this has to definitely do something to do with like movies and princesses always like the guy comes to the damsel in distress.
Right.
Or just that like it's like it should come easily, and it should come easily when you find someone. But I think it's like the idea that like dating is work, and to find like anything good in life like shouldn't come easily. So you should like work on yourself,
Right.
work on finding the right person, and it'll in the end like make for a much stronger
Right.
relationship.
Which is exactly why I did take that, course with that coach. Like I mentioned, like, yeah, she was calling out guys on their behaviors and their actions left and right just as much as she was calling us out on our own. Because it's like we have, like I said, it was really about like these successful women, and we have these standards, but it's like you don't get to just have certain standards just because you're a successful woman. You need to make sure that you are the partner that you want to receive. You do the inner work on yourself. So that was, that's been a while now where like I've really done all of that on myself, and I feel like I've stepped into my own highest power now that I have zero shame in getting on TikTok and saying, I will not go 50-50 on a dinner date with a man.
I mean, that's also the bare minimum.
Yeah,
right?
like I will not do this. Like I'm not afraid to say those things because their question is always like, what do you bring to the table? Like, trust me, I bought the table. Like the table is taken care of.
Yeah.
We're good here. I've done my work. Now these are my, requirements. And I'm not afraid to be single. I'm 27, so some people on TikTok like to make me feel like I'm old, but in hindsight, I'm young. So I'm like, I'll stay single until I do find someone like that. And with For the Girls and with my confidence coaching, a lot of girls who do come to me actually came out of long-term relationships or recently just got broken up with, and they're like, I can't believe how much I settled for, and now it makes sense why I was unhappy. Now it makes sense why my needs were not met or why I didn't feel fulfilled. And it's not to say that like I want to influence people to have my standards, but I would, my goal is to really give people the tools that would actually raise their awareness of like, oh, that's why I didn't feel fulfilled, and that's why this relationship didn't work out, because it had nothing to do with me. They're not breaking up over me. They're breaking up over whatever. Then they find me, and then they're like, now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I do work with a lot of women, and I would say a lot of my audience, like, on social media is women who are like, she's right. I was in a 9-year relationship. He always did X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I always felt like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And like now I'll never go back. I'll never settle again. So I'm like, see, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
I feel like
2020.
I feel like in my past life I was like married 5 times. Like I feel like there's a reason why. Like I have all this insight, even though I was.
You're like, why do I know what I know?
I was never married, but I do feel like I'm someone's ex-wife for some reason.
So with all that being said about relationships, we have standards and there are do's and don'ts. So I'm going to go through a couple and you're going to tell me if this is a do or a don't.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is taking a break.
Ooh. No.
Like, we don't take breaks.
No. Like, taking a break isn't like, we're not broken up, we might get back together.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Because, like, the way I see it is, like, well, I always say it's, like, one word short of a breakup. Like, it's like, okay, just call a spade a spade. It's a breakup. But at the same time, I do understand, like, the idea that, like, a breakup might not be forever. But, like, if you call it a break, you don't do the work on yourself that's required, I think, to, like, make a relationship work.
For me, it's all about, I'm a very, very, very big believer in divine timing. So I think that if something is not working out, just break up. Mm-hmm. And when the timing is aligned, if it's meant to be, you will get back together. Yep. I think that putting a timeline on something is not really the right way to do it. Like, taking this break means that, like, now you guys are in this both very gray area of, like, what's allowed, what's not, how long does this go on for, when do we have the right to reach out to each other again, and, like, it usually causes more chaos than it needs to. Yeah. I think if you break up, and if it's meant to be, then in the divine timing it will be, and if it's not meant to be, then, like, there you go. Now you just avoided the whole process of a break, and now you're able to just move on with your life. Because I think healing is what's way more important, and it's very hard to heal if you don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We already went over paying on the first date. Situationships, I feel like, is a word that is thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on situationships?
I've had plenty, and I will never do that again. We're either all in or we're not. That's it.
How do you like get past though like that sort of beginning talking stage where like I feel like in a way all relationships started as a situationship because there's a situation until you're exclusive, and if you're casually dating, like I understand like not rushing to put a label on things, but what do you do for that in between, would you say?
I would say that like the phases are this, like you meet and you start talking and there's no expectations. So even if you guys really truly like each other, there's no expectations in that beginning phase. Like, let's make sure that it's beyond the chemistry or the spark. Let's make sure we're actually compatible. Like, that's like the getting to know each other phase. Now that you have established that you are compatible, that there's more to this than just I like you, you like me, we're actually in, you know, a really good place with each other. Now you get into that place of like, okay, sure, are we like exclusive? Which to me, I think is, I kind of think exclusive is like an excuse for like not wanting to commit.
And
like,
not like,
like I just feel like you either are like boyfriend and girlfriend or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever your sexuality is like, or you're not. Like it's either you are or you aren't. But for the most part, I would say there's like the getting to know each other phase, the okay, we're doing this, we're not really seeing other people phase, and then there's like pure devotion and commitment phase, which would then go into like relationship, marriage, whatever that might look like for you. Because I do think that sometimes like even like down to just like giving a random example, it's like The Bachelor. Why do you think the Bachelor couples never work? Because they go from the getting to know each other phase
to engagement.
So it's like you literally skipped over the whole like phase of even deciding like, you know, like, okay, we're really doing this. So, you know, I think some people just get ahead of themselves, and it's really easy. It's so easy to like somebody. It's not easy to like someone and be compatible with them. That's the hard part. So if people skip over like prioritizing compatibility, which to me is way more important than chemistry, then that's why they're gonna come up with some problems and major speed bumps in their relationship.
Right. You clearly like have a lot of relationship insights, experience. But do you have any tips for online dating?
Ooh, so I actually just stopped doing apps recently.
Okay.
Because
same.
You know, first things first is that there's just such an abundance of people on there that it's too much, because I mean, I think about how many dates I've gotten from there that either like fell through or like bailed or whatever, that it's just like, this isn't even fun, because I know that say like maybe somebody else came up for them or somebody else came up for me, that like there's no pure excitement about that person. Like, because there's so many people, there's just so many options for both of us, that I feel like you really have to find that one diamond in the rough that you actually look forward to. And I literally never once in online dating got that experience of like one truly standing out to me. However, I was actually getting pretty good quality matches on Hinge is what I was using, because I had lowered my like chances of getting like all the likes and whatever, because I changed like my prompts and I changed a lot of things up. Like when I had pretty generic stuff on there, just like what I like or what I don't like, whatever it was, funnier stuff. Of course, guys are very physical, so if you have a beautiful picture on there, they're gonna like you without even like caring what it says in your prompt. So I had changed my prompts up, and I was getting actually really good dates, dinner dates, good quality of people, and even though I did get off of it, but just because I was like, whatever, I'm finding more people in person anyway. But I changed my prompts to directly answer those questions that people usually avoid, which is like, I'm looking for blank. And I would literally say what I'm exactly looking for. And I would say, like, I can't even remember exactly what I would say, but I would just directly, like, describe the kind of guy that I like, which off the bat already cuts half the guys out, because they're like, not all right. Go by.
But also, it gets rid of like, because like there are statistics that say like, you know, 30 to 40% of people are looking for a hookup on dating apps, and like if you're not looking for that, like, why not be upfront about it?
Yeah. The other cool thing that Hinge had come out with at the time was like the option to add what you're looking for. And it was like short term, long term, marriage, stuff like that. So I literally was like, marriage. I'm like, I want kids, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm straight up putting it out there. And there would be guys, first of all, there were way less guys matching with me. But the guys that were matching with me, there would be guys actually not liking my picture. They would be responding to my prompt with actual substance, actual value, like having a conversation around what we both want or what we both like desire, whatever the case might be. And even though, yeah, it didn't end up necessarily working out, I wasn't their person, they weren't mine, it definitely opened my eyes to the importance of having that transparency in your prompts. So I feel like that would be the most important thing, because like, you can't get discouraged by less people. It's not about the quantity, it's all about the quality. And I would say that I had better dates, better conversations, and better connections when I was directly putting out there like what's a non-negotiable for me, or what I, really want in a partner, whatever it was. Like, no one ever answers those.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm competitive about everything. Like,
everything.
We get it, Brad. We understand. So I was like done with those. And the other thing too, just to give like another tip as far as like you seeking them, don't just like someone because they're attractive to you. They're attractive to you.
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy, again, like guys are physical and visual, girls aren't as much, but we still are. We could see someone who's our type face-wise, their prompts could be like jack shit and we'll still give them a like. I stopped doing that because I was getting the hottest guys matching with me, and what would it turn into? Nothing. So I would only like them at all if they gave thoughtful, transparent answers to their prompts, and it actually showed me that they were serious about what they wanted. So I would say that that's like my main thing. And one like last tip that I would say, aside from how to get better quality, aside from how you find better quality, actually taking it offline would be, for me, it's all about getting out with them in person in literally like 48 hours. Like,
yes. Oh my God. Like doing it right away.
Yeah. As soon as
otherwise
possible.
we'll never return to that conversation again.
There was one guy that I would say was the most like potential out of like all of the guys that I was chatting with. And of course, once we match, he's like, yeah, I'll be back in town in a month. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
So we talked for like a minute because I was bored. And then what do you think happened in 2 weeks? Like, I remember that, but I don't even remember his name right now. Like, I could picture the guy, but I'm like, what was his name? Like, so it's just, again, unless you found that one who you genuinely, truly connected with, that just the stars all aligned in one moment, it's not really that likely. Get out with them right away.
Yeah.
Because that's the easiest. First of all, it's the most fun because you're actually doing things in person.
Yeah.
Taking it offline. And second of all, it actually determines quickly, like, the, urgency, excitement level, genuine interest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good tip. I feel the same way. Like, letting a conversation sit, it'll never go anywhere.
No. They can't be saying, how's your day? And then the next day you're like, good. I asked you yesterday, not interested anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Done.
Like, how interested are you supposed to be in a conversation, like
with
a surface conversation with a stranger?
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, so I want to take it back a little bit to your social media career and how you started on Instagram, but you've grown, you said, into TikTok. You're a podcaster, you're starting a label. So I guess, you've found passions within, like, that I guess were born out of your social media career. So what are tips that you would have for people who maybe are doing social media that might not feel fulfilled?
So to me, it's all about doing what actually like genuinely feels good and feels right for you. One thing that people always ask is like, how do you make the time to shoot every week, or how do you remember to post every day? And when I get these questions, I'm like, if you are not making the time to shoot, or if you are forgetting to post, you obviously aren't that passionate about it.
Right.
It is damn near impossible for me to not be able to find the time to shoot or not be able to not remember to post because I genuinely love what I'm doing. And I could speak from a real true experience of that shift happening to me from the Instagram and fashion content to now like my TikTok videos and podcast content, because for years, I mean, I would spend my entire Saturday, because when I'd be off from work, shooting photos, and then I would spend my whole Saturday night at home editing the photos, getting up, like I would literally shoot maybe once or twice in the month and have photos for the whole month. Like I would shoot 15 outfits in the day.
Wow.
So that this way, like I just could never go a day without posting. And I would have my alarm go off so that I made sure I posted and I had the caption ready. Like there was just no way around forgetting, like that wasn't a possible thing. And then as the years went on and I started to do like the podcast and I started to get a little bit more into like sharing value and advice, I found that, a whole week or two would go by and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have any Instagram pictures to post. And I would have nothing up at all, or I didn't even have like, older photos to recycle. I was like out of content. And then I'm like, all right. So that's when I started to get into like more of the reels and the videos and things like that. And that came so easily, effortlessly, naturally, that the way that fashion content once did.
Right.
So I just think that you have to do what genuinely fuels you, what you actually feel passionate about, because when you love what you do, I mean, it's corny, when you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, but when you love what you do, you don't need someone to remind you to do the work. You don't need someone to tell you to post. Like, content creation is a business.
Yeah.
We are entrepreneurs. We are very self-accountable and self-disciplined people when we show up, and get the work done. So if you find that you're struggling to be disciplined or accountable with your work, it's most likely because you don't genuinely love what you do. I think that people can find something, whatever their God-given talent is, or whatever their hobby is, or whatever they just genuinely love, they can truly make a brand out of that. Ever since using TikTok this year, I mean, there are people with 1 million followers over like how to cook or plants, like they're literally how to take care of their plants, like funny things that to me I'm like I would never even think about.
Right, but
seeing
it's because
that.
it's something that they're passionate about, and it's like so true that like if you're faking it, you'll never go anywhere.
Yeah.
When it comes to, especially in this age of TikTok, right? Like unless you're being your genuine self, people see through it.
Yeah.
But it's so true. Like that's why I feel like if you're trying to be an influencer, you're trying to be a content creator, don't like default to like outfit photos if that's not what you're passionate about, because like I could never do that. I would never take an outfit photo. I mean, I would take a photo in clothes.
And that's what I said
like
recently.
The difference, right?
I recently said, I'm like, when you do see me posting an outfit photo now, it's in real time. Because you know that I really wore that outfit and I really wanted to take that picture and I really went somewhere in it. I lost my passion because I do Q&As like once a week and people are like, you never post outfit photos anymore. And I said, like, I lost my passion for waking up at the ass crack of dawn to go to the Brooklyn Bridge and take pictures in stiletto heels falling into the Brooklyn Bridge. Like it's just, I lost my, like, there was a time where I lived for that. Yeah. And now I'm like, no, I live for fulfilling other people and, giving them coaching and whatever it might be. And I love how you just said about like the whole faking it thing, because that's fake it till you make it. The opposite of it is at the forefront of my coaching always. Right. I say face it till you make it. Like, you have to be real, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be honest, which is why like all the behind the scenes stuff is what's going the most like viral now. Like how people are like, curation is dead and like perfection is dead. It's all about realness and all that, because those are the things that, actually, let me think of how I want to say this. Like they're saying, we're all saying that curation and all of these things are basically dead, because the real value comes from like how you can help people and things of that sort. Whereas I felt like I was no longer, like I just felt like I'm not doing anything for anybody. Like I'm not even doing anything for myself. Now with doing what I'm doing, people, I'm getting like good feedback from it, and I'm like, okay, I actually, not only am I fulfilling myself and filling up my own cup, I'm helping other people. And like I just posted this yesterday because someone sent me a beautiful DM and I said, like, this is the greatest privilege in the world. Like, this is the best gift in the world, to world of social media that literally anybody can just discover what they're good at, what they're an expert in, what they enjoy, and make a career out of it.
Yeah.
Like, what a world that we live in. And that's why I say, you know, like, we're in such a progressive world that literally anything is possible. Like, we can all we really can. And you know, some people do this with a full-time job, and I know that those are the people who always ask the most questions of like, but how, and it's like, you just make it work. You wake up earlier, or you go to sleep later, or some people say you sacrifice your weekends. I say you invest your weekends. It depends on how you look at it. Either you're sacrificing your weekends from the bar, but to me that's not a sacrifice, because not going to the bar is not a loss for me. It's more about investing into my work. So yeah, you make it work when it's something that you really, really want to do.
And I feel you said something about, you know, people sending you DMs, and, you know, it makes you feel fulfilled that like the content you're putting out is connecting with your followers. How would you say that contrasts with the following you had prior to that sort of content when you were doing fashion content? How do those followings differ?
So, you know, I would say that I've always brought my personality to my social media. So even when I was doing fashion photos, my stories was always me. I was never really that like, I think about the fashion influencers that I follow, that their entire brand, like their stories is always links to their outfit or a really cool life. Like, I might have been taking these cool photos in the city, but again, they were never real time. My real life was like sweatpants, sweatshirt, chilling at home, talking to the camera. So I've always been very business minded. I've always talked about like work ethic and discipline and all that on my story. I've always been like the friend who gives advice. I've always done Q&As. So a lot of people really have followed me from the beginning because of my personality outside of my fashion brand, I guess. And so I don't find that it's that much of a hard transition, because I mean, Reels came out now, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And I remember that I posted like Reels from the literal like day that Reels came out. And I got into videos from the beginning, even if they were fashiony or whatever, like, or my own personality. Like, I started to do video content on Instagram for 2 years now. So I do feel like, even though this year I've made a hard transition, it's almost been like slowly transitioning over the past 2 years, because when Reels did come out, I did focus on them a little bit more than regular photos. So I don't find that it was that harsh of a contrast. However, of course, I lose followers all the time, but I gain followers all the time. I would say that my followers I'm gaining are mainly coming from my TikTok. So, I mean, and also my following on Instagram and TikTok is like 93% women. Right. So whether I'm whether I'm talking fashion or dating or business, everything I do is for the girls. My podcast is literally for the girls. So I feel like it still all resonates in some way. I have followers who are like, I'm married for 30 years, not 30 maybe. They're like, I'm, you know, however much older than you. I'm married for 10 years, whatever. And they're like, and I still love listening to your dating stories and the things that you say. I've just always kind of incorporated my personality into my content. So I feel like it's not that new for them.
Right. So the last thing I want to talk about is your label, Vixen the label. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about Vixen because this will be out in October, and it's crazy how long of a process it is to launch a brand. Like, my naive ass, like, I thought that this was gonna be out a year ago, but you know what? Again, divine timing. Like I said, I believe in it wholeheartedly. So everything happens in divine timing, and it's exciting because, yes, I did always post my outfits, but I was always consistently like one certain style. I was always one certain look. So I feel like for me, when I was coming out with, you know, Vixen, which I won't say yet what I'm fully dropping. You'll see when it comes out. But for me, I've always been someone who reminds people of, like, obviously I'm wearing all black, so it's like I'm very much into like neutrals. I'm very much into lace, like silk, like things like that. So you're always gonna find me in like the same kind of, style. So there came a point in 2021 where I'm like, okay, I want to like go all in on like my specific just kind of my specific wardrobe, my specific. So that's when I started investing a little bit more into just like my own look rather than like doing so many collabs with like all different like fast fashion and whatever, and being all over the place. And so I feel like now it's all kind of transitioned into just like that one timeless thing that makes me, because I know a lot of girls like they love that, and they're always making certain comments about that. Even if I'm not sharing specifically my fashion content anymore, it's still my style, it's my true style. And so yeah, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, when this like came to be, I was like, all right, what could I do that's like me, that's very timeless, classy, but also sexy, and confident, just all of the things that exude, I would feel like, my personality.
Right.
And I was with my friend who was shooting my photos. This is when I was living in Miami, and she's a creative director, and so she's like always the brains behind like the true creation. I'm the business mind, and she's great at business anyway, but she's way more of the creative, and I'm like, I'll invest anything, I'll do anything, I'll make it happen, but I need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. She's like, the word Vixen? She's like a sexy yet like poised, classy girl, basically. She's like, what about Vic, as in like Victoria, V-I-C?
Oh my gosh, I didn't get the Vic part.
Yeah,
That's
V-I-C,
amazing.
like Victoria,
I
and
love
S-E-N,
that.
instead of V-I-X-E-N.
Right.
So she's like,
I'm
Vixen.
sitting here thinking like, did I think Vixen was spelled differently my whole
Yeah.
life? That's amazing.
Yeah, no,
I love
so
that.
Vixen. So once she said that, mind was blown, pen to paper, looking for a manufacturer, like
Love.
everything happened instantly, because I feel like you need that one little spark of inspiration, and once she said the name, I'm like, Vixen.
When something has a name too, it just feels so much more tangible.
Yes.
And then
I
you know what
had
to call it.
something
It's not
to,
like, oh, my
like-
project. It's like
Right.
Vixen.
And I would say that's the beauty of Vixen, the label that's coming out, is that we've had the name from day one.
Right.
And I would say that that's like the hardest part, is to get the name. And that's even like, just to go back to For the Girls for a second, because I did start it as an IGTV series, when I did want to make it a podcast, because I was transitioning from doing it with a partner to doing it as a podcast, I was like, do I take our name alone? Like, I don't know what to do. So I, for a while, was trying to think of a new podcast name. And then I finally just went there and I was like, can I just do For the Girls by myself? And so I couldn't move forward with any creativity without a name. I was just super stuck.
You're bogged down by that.
Yeah, and so that was the same with Vixen. I'm like, I know I want to do something, but how do I want to do it? And she was like, a Vixen is literally this woman. You are this woman. We can use your name to brand it, and that's it. You have a brand. And then we were like, done from there.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see what it is.
Yes, coming soon.
Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone, follow Victoria Alario. Follow Under the Influence on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Subscribe, review to our podcast. We love you. Thank you.